Can you tell me what they look like? Can you tell me how many of them there were? Were you given food?
But the teachers are alive. They're not books. They are the very living essences of nature itself.
What a strange person.
Unbelievably powerful supercomputer that's running our reality, and we don't have a clue as to how to operate it.
So when maybe you or somebody else creates an AGI system and you get to ask her one question, what would that question be?
What's outside the simulation?
Say in your mind, say to yourself, I am more than my physical body, because I am more than physical matter. I can perceive that which is greater than the physical world.
Welcome to Lighting the Void.
Broadcasting from a shack on a hill in the mossy creek bottoms of Cane Creek, Arkansas. Welcome back to Lighting the Void. We're live on KCLK Digital Broadcasting, the Fringe FM, and it's Thursday night. It's the 13th, is that right? I don't even know what day it is anymore, yeah. So, the week is flying by. I want to thank Isabella Green for coming on the show last night. That was a hell of a show. We also spoke to Lars Mills this week, too. Pacho is doing such a good job with this show. I mean, seriously. There's no better producer in the world than Pacho. I got lucky. I often wonder sometimes how I get so lucky. You know, that the guy just rolls in my life like that. And seriously, everything that happens about this show that we do now, I'm telling you, most of it is all him. Most of it's all him. So a lot of the speaking I speak for him, but it's interesting. I've never really talked about this. I don't think I have, but it's like, maybe I have talked about it, but I don't give him enough credit because that time I was looking for producers, when he called me, I think we talked for like a few hours, and it was like I was talking to my brother. I realized that I didn't have to ask him, like, man, do you know who I want to talk to? The people, the subjects, everything. And just like tonight, this is a perfect show for this broadcast. Jim Willis is on with us tonight. First time he's ever been on Lighting the Void. And before we get that kicked off, I do want to thank our sponsors at GetTheTea.com, the network sponsors, as well as AncientLifeOil.com and Metaphorical Archaeology. That's Barbara Charlton. She's still doing good work, always staying busy helping out clients with those EFT tapping sessions. You can give her a call at 214-995-3754. Also, if you're into ufology, UFO Seekers is where it's at. UFOseekers.com. Go check them out. YouTube.com/UFO Seekers. Yesterday, there were some technical hiccups as we're transferring servers. We're still doing that. We're going to have a new Alexa skill. We're also going to have, I think before this is all over with, it's taking a little bit of time to develop the apps, but the apps are going to have shout-out functions on them. I can't wait. You'll be able to just hold a button down, record what you want to say or ask, and it comes right into the studio. things like that. We're going to be on Apple CarPlay, Roku. It's going to be fun, good times. Plus, we're going to have like video, and we got newer shows coming. I've been talking to the great Nish as well. Like, we're trying to, I've had to postpone my meeting with her twice, but the Cosmic Salon's coming. So a lot of good things are happening for the Fringe FM, just like I thought they would. Everything's growing. Lots of cool stuff coming. All right, let's get this show on the road. So Jim Willis is here with us. This is our first time ever speaking to him, and after graduating from the Eastman School of Music, Jim was a high school band and orchestra teacher during the day, and a symphony, a trombonist on the weekends, a jazz musician at night, and a choral conductor on Sunday mornings, and before earning his master's degree in religion and entering the Protestant ministry for 40 years. Wow, that's really cool. The author of 12 books on spirituality and lost civilizations, he served as an adjunct college professor in the fields of world religions and instrumental music while working part-time as a carpenter, the host of his own drive time radio show, an arts council director, and guest lecturer, speaking about topics ranging from historical studies to contemporary spirituality. Upon retirement, he was determined to confront the essential spirituality that has inspired humankind since the very beginning of time. And the result of this quest is chronicled in his books, The Dragon Awakes, Rediscovering Earth's Energy, Ancient Gods and Supernatural Gods. In his recent book, his books including Lost Civilization, from Visible Ink Press, and The Quantum Akashic Field from Findhorn Inner Traditions, and Hidden History, Ancient Aliens, and the Suppressed Origins of Civilization, also from Visible Ink Press. JimWillis.net is the website you can go to for reference tonight, and Facebook.com/JimWillis.author. Thanks for coming on the program, man. Wow. Pretty impressive.
Oh, thank you, Joe. You make me sound so interesting. Thank you. I appreciate that.
I don't see how you couldn't be interested in pulling all that off. And you've done all your own radio show, too. That's pretty cool, man.
Well, you live long enough, and you can get a lot of stuff accomplished, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, it seems like you have something I can relate to. Like, it seems like you like expression. You like that thing. You like music and expression, but you also are a very curious natured man, and that's a good thing. Like, you want to get down to the truth, don't you?
Yeah, that's it. 40 years a minister, when I went into it in the early 70s, most of us back then, we kind of had this idea that being a minister meant engaged in this lifetime spiritual quest of searching for God and having a community around you that was going to be a supportive spiritual community and all that kind of thing. And you get into it and you realize it's a job like anything else, and you're always preparing for the next church service, the next sermon, the next seminar that you have to lead, and then when I started teaching at the college level, it was always the next semester and the next lecture, and pretty soon 40 years just flies by. You don't know where it's gone, and you realize you were doing all this stuff, talking about spirituality and about all this stuff, but you didn't have time to experience it. I think it was Socrates who said, "Beware the barrenness of a busy life." And so when I retired, almost 11 years ago now, my wife and I retired. We left Florida, where my last church was, and where I was teaching instrumental music at down in Daytona at the college there, and I was playing jazz gigs and doing all that kind of stuff. We just put it all behind us. We came up to the woods of South Carolina. We bought a little place, place back in the woods that wasn't cleaned out at all. It was just woods. So we had to build a road back to it and bring in power and drill a well, and then I had to build a house. And when I got the house built and everything else, we just decided we are going to retire for 1 year and we're going to go on retreat. We were going to get after the essential spirituality that we've been looking for our whole life. So that's what we did, and we were going to do it for 1 year, a 1 year retreat. That was 11 years ago, and we're still going strong.
So y'all planned on? So you just said let's try a 12-month Let's just try a 12-month run with this and see what happens, right?
Yeah, I wanted to watch the seasons change for 12 months. But I did have an agenda. I've got to say, after teaching about God or teaching about spirit, I wanted to experience that essential reality. But I didn't want any of this, peekaboo religion stuff, where was that a message from God? And I wanted to confront God. I even had a Bible verse in mind. My Bible verse came from this passage in the Old Testament where Jacob and Esau, two brothers, they had a falling out, and Jacob had to run for his life. Jacob's name was eventually changed to Israel, called He Wrestles with God. And the reason that he got that name was because he and Esau, his brother, were about to come back together again, and he was worried. He was doing what we all do at night when you got a day coming, you don't know what's going to happen, and he was pacing back and forth, and all of a sudden he meets this creature, as the Bible story goes. He meets this man, and they wrestle all night. I know it's kind of weird, but it turns out when the morning breaks that Jacob has been wrestling with God. And he said, as the sun broke through the next morning, he said, I will not let you go until you bless me. And that was the Bible verse that I had in my mind. I wanted to wrestle with God.
I know exactly what he's talking about.
I actually came out here. I stood on this piece of property.
Yeah.
When we moved it, the day the house was built and we moved everything in, I actually said, I looked at the woods around me and I said, I will not let you go until you bless me. Right 24 hours a day. Now, I never knew what was going to happen. Surprisingly, my prayer was answered, but in a way I never expected. I did find that spirituality that I was looking for, but it didn't come through my Christian tradition. It probably had to come from some other way, and it turns out to be much more pagan, much more earth-centered.
Yeah.
Isn't
that funny how that works? It goes deeper than what we've been taught.
There's a sequel. There's a sequel to this story. I've got to tell you about it if we have time. A couple of years ago, I was asked to go to Cornwall in the UK and speak to a group there and give a talk about world religions, the roots of world religion. So I flew to England, had a wonderful time, spent some time there dowsing with around the Merry Maidens and the stone circles and the big megaliths and all that kind of thing, saw Stonehenge and all that kind of thing. Well, when I was in England, there was one place I just had to visit because my ancestors back 4, 5, 6 generations ago used to preach at this little church. They were clergy in the Church of England, and they used to preach in this little stone church in a little town called Fenny Compton, up about northwest of England, of London. So I went up there. The little church was still standing. I got touch with the historian in the town, and she let me into the church, and we found a plaque where it said the Willis name, where my ancestors used to preach, and she showed me where they were buried, and I got to stand in the pulpit where my ancestor preached and stare at the same stained glass windows that he was looking at way back when. And lo and behold, the window that you could see from the pulpit, I'd never seen this in a stained glass window before. It was a picture of Jacob wrestling with God, saying, I will not let you go until you bless me. I had no idea it was there.
That's
somehow
crazy. That's trippy.
Those spiritual genes were passed down, I guess. I tell you, the hair was standing up in the back of my head.
So you agree that, like most of us, that those signs like synchronicities, those types of things that you can't prove to a scientist, but deep down,
yep.
you know what you're being told. That was for you.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. I don't think any question about it. It was very powerful, and it was very confirming. Maybe that's one of the reasons we just don't want to leave here. We have such a connection now with this land and the spirituality. It turns out we didn't even know it. Turns out that I built this house right on top of an old quarry near the Savannah River that goes back right down about 40 miles south of us. Al Goodyear, Dr. Al Goodyear, started the site that's turned archaeology upside down. He called it Topper Site. And he found evidence there of humans that go way back before Clovis. I mean, I'm talking 40, 50,000 years. So if they were down there, they were up here. And we live right on a quarry where they used to come and get the materials they needed to make their stone implements and tools. And we found hundreds of them. Very rarely does a week go by that we don't find some kind of a tool or a chip or something that's been worked that goes back a long way. So I have no idea, no doubt that we were led here. That was talk about synchronicity. We were led to this spot. I really believe that.
Well, I think what would you say to the skeptics that say, well, it's more like confirmation bias. You call it synchronicity, but it's just your mind identifying something. It's a total coincidence. What would you say to a person that tells you that?
Well, probably it would have bothered me way back when. It just doesn't anymore. I've come to the conclusion that when you're talking to a skeptic, your words are simply not sufficient to change any opinions. And when you're talking to a real believer, your words are not adequate to describe the depths of it. And so I don't feel any great need to become some kind of a converter and go out there and convert people. I know in my own heart and in my own mind what happened, and shows like yours are taking this out to a whole new dimension nowadays with all the new ways of reaching new people. And everybody has to have their own experience. When I studied out-of-body experiences up at the Monroe Institute, and, Bob Monroe used to say we are much more than our bodies. But he used to say what we have to do is transfer our beliefs to our knowns. And I really like that. We can believe something, but it doesn't really become real for us until we know it. And once you experience it, it's just like night and day. And to those who haven't experienced it, all I can say is, if you want to, try, keep going. But we're never going to argue our way intellectually through this kind of a thing. But on the other hand, once you experience something, it's with you for life.
Man, I totally agree with you on that. And so your studies have taken you, deep down a rabbit hole, right? Like we're talking about way, way deep into history. And if you had to pick out of all the books, all your books look so interesting. I want to read all of them, but if you said, hey, if someone came to you and said, I want to know the truth about who we are and where we came from, like what's this really all about? And I want to know your opinion on it. What book would you tell them to grab out of your writings?
Well, I think I'd have to pick two. If we're looking in terms of our civilization as a people, the civilization that exists now on Earth, I'd probably point them toward lost civilizations, because that in that book I talk about, and it was after a lot of study about civilizations in the past that have existed and then gone the way of so many civilizations and disappeared and were lost totally. And so if that's the case, that's the book I'd point him to in terms of our civilization. In terms of who we are as a people, where we came from, it would probably be Hidden History, because in that book I try to talk about how the universe came about, how the cosmos came about, how life came from non-life, how humans arose. And yet, if you want a book about the basic spirituality of who we are and ultimately where we come from in terms of the source that gives us our birth, I would probably have to point him to Quantum Akashic Field, which has the subtitle is A Guide to Out-of-Body Experiences for the Astral Traveler. So there you go. You asked me for one book and I gave you three. How about that for marketing, huh?
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, that's fine though. I mean, the Astral Travel is kind of where it's been kind of like the focus on what we've talked about this week, because we've been trying to figure this thing out on the show for a long time. And I was mentioning to Isabella last night, I said, look, we talked about this with the Patreon group. I still got to get that video posted, the Astral Journal that we do, but it's time to go back to the basics. Like I even have to admit, I've been telling everybody I was listening to William Buellman when I had my first out-of-body experience, but it wasn't.
He's one of my mentors.
he's great, right? But it was Robert Monroe that I was listening to, actually. And he did this program called, I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it's not the Gateway Experience. It's the shortened version that he did a long time ago called the Gateway Voyage. That's what I was listening to.
Bob Monroe was a pioneer. He really was. He even gave us the term out-of-body experience, OBEs. William Buellman, I studied with Bill for a week up at the Monroe Institute, and I consider William Buellman one of my mentors. I really do. I think he's one of the greatest teachers right now teaching of out-of-body experience. And it was his methods that I adopted, and he was the one that kind of led me into all this. And I had my first out-of-body experience a couple of weeks before I went up and actually studied with him. And it was an eye-opener. It'll change your life. And I find it so comforting right now, because in these crazy days that we're living in, with so much stuff going on,
because we could all hang out in the astral realm for sure if we figure this thing out, right?
Yeah. And if we can get over this idea that we are just living for these few 70, 80, 90 years, whatever it is that we live here, with all of the problems associated with it, and if we can get the idea through our heads that, man, this is only probably one incarnation, but certainly only one small part, because we are eternal spiritual beings that are just living in this body. I find a terrific comfort in that, knowing that there's so much more.
I do too. That's very well said. Very well put. Speaking of which, I want to talk about Enoch. I want to talk about your thoughts on that too. But before I go down that road, you wrote a book called Snapshots and Visions: A View from the Now, and I know that's kind of a back in the day book that you wrote, like 2009, but I think it's kind of prevalent, because you're talking about things that are in our DNA, what makes us human, the essence of life. And you said everything from the smallest plant to the largest mountain, it's always in a process of change. And that's true. But it's not the most important thing. Like you're saying that one of the most important things is changing ourselves psychologically, emotionally, and spiritually. Because it's like we can't stop the physical stuff. That's just naturally going to happen. But I guess that's where our choice lies, is with the other stuff. Is that what you're trying to say in that book?
Yeah, that's right. I think, when we look at life, we have a tendency to think of what we're going through in terms of, we like to think we're the same people that we were 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 50 years ago. We're not at all. There's not a cell in our body that's the same then. We're constantly changing, constantly evolving. And I think that insight is the key to understanding why we're here in the first place. We have to we have to come to understand that we come from what I like to call the source. Probably in the old days I might have called it God, but the word God has so much baggage associated with it now that I'm not really comfortable using that word, because I'm afraid if I use the word God, somebody is going to hear me and think that I mean something totally different than I do. So I refer to it as the source. And although I can't prove this, I really do tend to believe that there in the source we find perfect unity, perfect oneness. The only thing you can't find in the source is individual experience. To have that individual experience, we have to leave the source. We have to come here, and I think this is a great school that we're involved in. We find ourselves here in this material body gathering experience, and when that experience is over, we go back to the source, taking that experience with us. And so the source actually grows. The source itself is evolving because of our experience. That makes us really important in the great scheme of things, I think. And I get really excited about that, knowing that even the bad things that happen to me, and you can't just have a life that's good all the time. Life is duality. It's good and bad. And so when we experience the good, we can say thank you. When we experience the bad, we can even say thank you for that, because it's an experience that will be someday taking back to the source and helping the source itself evolve. I get pretty excited about that.
Do you think that's what it is? Like the source itself, God, whatever you want to call it, is just trying to figure out who he or it is, maybe?
Well, yeah, that's probably probably simplifying it a little bit too much, but how else can we gain experience when we're in a place of perfect unity where there's no individuality? So consciousness, we'll call it consciousness. How about that? I think consciousness is at the basis of everything. I don't think it originates in the brain at all. I think the brain is a receiver of consciousness rather than a generator. And so all of the experiences that we have when we return, it's a process of evolution, the source itself, consciousness itself evolving. I love what Ervin Laszlo calls it, the Akashic field, and that's where I got the term for the quantum Akashic field. And I think that the quantum physicists are just now beginning to discover this field through their mathematics. They're discovering the field that ancient mystics and shaman and gurus have been exploring for thousands upon thousands of years. So maybe that means we're in a pretty exciting time right now, because we're about to have a breakthrough where science and spirituality are entering the same highway and traveling together now rather than as enemies, discovering the same thing just through different methods. That's all.
Very well put. That's very well put. I can't believe that we're already, I can tell this is going to be a cool conversation because we're already at the first break already. So yeah, we got to take a short network break here, guys. We'll be right back. Stay with us. More Lighting the Void coming up.
Hi, this is Chronicled from Belgium, and you're listening to Lighting the Void with Joe Roop.
Please listen. Now is not the time to fear. When your immune system is strong, shields up. You have very little worries. If your immune system is compromised, you're susceptible to all viruses. I say shields up and no fear. Try Heart Love from GetTheTea.com. Heart Love has a special ingredient called allicin. It comes from the healing part of the garlic plant. No garlic breath, no garlic leaking out your pores, just pure immune-building ingredients that gets your shields up. Heart Love is a unique blend of herbs that loves to build you up. Google garlic and know the benefits. One Heart Love pill is equal to 20 cloves of garlic. 20 cloves! Shields up. You've heard of our Life Change Cleansing Tea at GetTheTea.com. Now try Heart Love. And by the way, take your blood pressure and watch weekly what happens. So here's how to purchase. Log on to GetTheTea.com. That's GetTheTea.com and build your shields. That's GetTheTea.com. Mention Ray in the coupon code and hit apply and receive free shipping.
Born out of the alchemical tradition of Paracelsus is a medical tradition called Spagyria. Though not many people practice this work today, Phoenix Aurelius has been researching and teaching this work for the last 15 years, and he needs your support.
Hi, I'm Phoenix Aurelius, and I'm the founder of the Phoenix Aurelius Research Society, where I perform modern scientific research on the methods and techniques of Paracelsian alchemy and Spagyria for health, wellness, agriculture, ecology, and more. All my work is 100% funded by the public. So if you like what I'm doing and you want to support my research, please consider making a purchase of spagyric medicines from my apothecary, fund your own spagyric IDF wellness research, or participate in my group study or one-on-one immersion courses so that you can learn how to perform this work for yourself. I want to thank you in advance for your support.
Visit thefringe.fm/alchemy research and enter coupon code FRINGE and receive 15% off anything and everything on the website. That's thefringe.fm/alchemy research. And thank you for doing your part and keeping alchemy alive in the modern day.
This is Malorcas 45, fan of the Fringe FM, challenging everyone to open their mind's eye. Listen to Lighting the Void with Joe Roop to gain precision for your third eye vision.
This is Barbara Charlton from Metaphorical Archaeology. If you've ever had a traumatic paranormal experience, the effects of it may stay with you for years. Who do you talk to? You can't go to conventional help. What we do is we use emotional freedom techniques or tapping to actually neutralize the effects of that event. Maybe when you tell the story now, your heart races and your palms get sweaty. You don't even want to think about it because you don't know how to neutralize that. That's what EFT tapping does. It neutralizes those emotions. The circuit that was recorded on is gone. The energy flows freely and you're free of it. And that's what emotional freedom is all about. We offer this as a pro bono service, but this is something that I offer because no one, it seems, is helping people with these experiences. If you'd like to reach me, it's really easy. My cell phone is 214-995-3754. Please leave a message. I will get back to you as quickly as possible. Or you can email me, barb.eft@gmail.com. And EFT stands for Emotional Freedom Techniques. Reach out to me. It's confidential. This works. You won't believe.
We all have that story to tell in our lives. The winds were howling. The ground shook. You could hear rushing water. And then history repeats itself. When there's no power, refrigeration fails. Stores with their shelves stripped bare. ATMs can't operate. Deliveries stop. Then what? These events can last days or weeks. You need a plan. In statements made during recent interviews, FEMA Administrator Brock Long has repeatedly urged all Americans to understand three truths. FEMA is broke, the system is broken. If this is the new normal, Americans can't rely on federal cavalry when disaster strikes. Don't get caught out in the elements empty-handed. Prepare with us by going to preparewiththefringe.com and get your 2-week food supply. 92 servings, 8 food varieties with 25-year shelf life. Normally $137, now only $75. Or get a month's supply, normally $247, now only $147, shipped in one business day. Just go to preparewiththefringe.com or call 888-440-7931. That's 888-440-7931. Get this great offer and be prepared while it lasts.
Hey, this is country music singer and void walker Jason Benoit, and when I need my fix on the world of magic and the capabilities of the human consciousness, I listen to Joe Roop right here on Lighting the Void Radio.
We've heard your feedback loud and clear. You called it out, and now we're answering. All new live programming, 5 nights a week. Always remember, the Fringe FM is for you, the listener, and we appreciate your feedback. Keep the feedback coming. You can email us at talkback@thefringe.fm. Call the station at 501-777-5631, or send us a message on Facebook at The Fringe FM.
Listening to Lighting the Void Radio.
All right, welcome back. Jim Willis, our guest tonight. If you want to go to the website, it's jimwillis.net. That's the website for reference. We'll drop that into the chat room. If you want to join our chat room, you go to thefringe.fm/chat room so you can join our Discord server. And then I think next hour we'll open up the phones. So keep that number handy too. It's 1-800-588-0335. Good round of books here. I want to get into this one that really caught my eye. Jim, you wrote a book, and is this your newest book, Censoring God? Is this the latest writing that you have out?
Yes. Well, it's not out yet. I've finished the book, and I sent it off to the publisher and to the editor. I checked with him today. He's working on it now. And, of course, then it has to go through all the other editors and do all the rest of the stuff. And then it's off to the designers. And I guess it's not even going to come out until next April. But they have the cover and the synopsis and all the rest of the stuff already on Amazon. So it's available for pre-order, but it won't be out for quite a few months yet.
Okay. Well, it caught my eye anyways, because you're asking, like, why isn't the book of Enoch in the Holy Bible, even though Enoch is referenced multiple times? And that's so true. We've talked about that on the show. It's like they threw the book out, but yeah, they talk about him constantly. What's going on there?
Yeah. That is quite a strange story. First of all, he's one of the strangest characters you're going to find in the Bible. You know, you're reading in that chapter in Genesis that talks about the begats. You know, so-and-so was so-and-so years old, and he begat his son, so-and-so, and lived, and then he died, and then he died. And then all of a sudden, here's Enoch, and he had his son. His son was, Methuselah, and you're reading in the line of Methuselah, and even Noah, and everything else, and Lamech. And Enoch, all of a sudden, the Bible simply says he was not, for God took him. Now, what in heaven's name does that mean? He was not. He didn't die. Then you go back and you start to look at this Enoch, who's also mentioned in Jude, in the book of Jude, and he's written a couple of other times in the Old Testament. We hear about Enoch, but we don't know anything about him, and yet he's a strange character. What's really strange is you understand that Enoch is also identified in Egypt under a different name, under the name Idris, and he's also identified in Greece under the god Hermes. So here you've got Hermes, Idris, Enoch, all the same character. And you ask, was this a real figure, or was it a composite figure based on different people who really lived? And we didn't know anything. All we had was these books about Enoch, these little snippets here and there. And yet there must have been a significant book because he was quoted all the time. Then, lo and behold, the book shows up. The book of Enoch finally shows up, but it doesn't show up in the Middle East. It shows up in, of all places, Ethiopia. Ethiopia
That's right.
Had a copy of the book, and it was written in the liturgical language of Ethiopian. It wasn't discovered till the late 1800s. And when it was finally translated, it was this wild book of where he's met by these alien-type entities, and he's taken on all these different journeys and has all these different experiences and everything else, and then taken out of time at the end. He never dies a physical life. He's a death. He's taken out of his taken alive into, well, according to the book of Enoch, in heaven. So you just have to ask yourself, what is this all about? And I've studied the book of Enoch quite a lot, and I'm just absolutely fascinated by it. The more I read, the more I like, the more I want to know more about this character, because it was just a fantastic story. He figures greatly in the whole idea of the Egyptian Zep-Tepi, the first times, and he even has a great connection with Göbekli Tepe. Probably the first temple of our civilization, built in Anatolia in Turkey. I was scheduled to lead a group to Turkey next month, in a tour we're sponsoring with Ancient Origins magazine, but we can't do it because the world situation is just not feasible nowadays. So we had to put it off until next September. But when we go to Göbekli Tepe and discover this first this first of the ancient temples, this wonder that's just turned archaeology upside down and doubled the length of our civilization and shows the real birth of our civilization. And the Enoch story it just permeates that whole region. So who was he? A fascinating study.
Yeah, I get a little creeped out by it sometimes too, because I've read a lot of esoteric texts and some of the angels that he talks about in there, the ones that in the story that he had to, tried to speak up for, like Azazel and these other angels. There's some pretty scary books about these angels too, like almost as if they're still here. They're still.
Yeah.
Do you believe they're still here?
Well, my mind is open just about to anything. For a long time, when I was involved in being a pastor of a church for 40 years, I had the typical modern Christian mindset that had an awful lot of hard time with entities, for instance, from other dimensions. And we'd like to say, that sounds too
woo-woo,
too ancient alien, or too crazy, or too woo-woo, or that kind of thing. And yet, at the same time, every Christmas we would stand up and we would sing hymns like "Angels We Have Heard on High" or "Hark the Herald Angels Sing," And what are those songs about? They're songs about entities from another dimension that step into this dimension and carry a message of hope. And if that doesn't sound like alien entities, I don't know what does. So. That's why when I wrote Hidden Histories, I had to make sure I wrote Ancient Aliens and the suppressed origins of civilization, because I put a lot of these angels right into the ancient alien category that somehow have learned to step out of that dimension into this dimension. And then lo and behold, when I came here and started dowsing and started doing out-of-body experiences, I actually met one who would probably in Christian tradition be called my guardian angel. We actually have conversations every day through dowsing. It's frustrating because I can only get yes and no answers out of a set of dowsing rods, but I believe there are presences around and enter into our own into our own way of life, just in the same way that I've through out-of-body experience and through Bob Monroe and Bill Buellman and so many others who have had out-of-body experiences have actually discovered ways to leave this life and leave this dimension and go to a different dimension where I'm sure we are perceived as alien figures, So, it, like you say, it can creep you out. Because some of this stuff gets pretty wild. But on the other hand, when you look at it objectively, I do really believe that we are guided and protected. I've only had one bad out-of-body experience in my entire life. All the rest have been positive, and I can't say I've ever wanted to come back. Matter of fact, as a minister, I've been at the bedside of hundreds of people who have died, and dozens of people who have actually been declared clinically dead and then come back with a near-death experience. And I have yet to find one who wanted to come back. I've yet to find one person who said, who didn't tell me, I'd really rather stay. It was so great over there. So I take a great comfort in that.
Yeah, I've wanted to stay out long. I've only had one local experience that I know. I guess I could ask you this too, because I ask everybody this. I like to just get everybody's opinion on this question. Yep. Do you believe, in your experience, is it the same as dreaming? I want to hear what you think first, because it wasn't that way for me.
Well, I think that dreams and out-of-body experiences are very closely related. As a matter of fact, I think sometimes in our dreams, I do think we leave our bodies. And I know that my dreams, since I started having out-of-body experience, have become much more vivid, sometimes very disturbing. But I've noticed strange things in almost every single really vivid dream that I have. At the end, I always wind up searching for my car to come home, and I can't find it, and I have to look for it, and I always wake up before I find it. And I've become absolutely convinced that that car is how my dreams symbolize my body, that I've been out of my body trying to get back in, and in my dream I interpret that as trying to get back into my automobile to come home.
You're looking for your car. That's funny.
Yeah, it's just it's almost getting funny, except that the more out of body experiences I have, the more vivid my dream life is, and sometimes it's really kind of weird. However, I did have a kind of a breakthrough a couple of weeks ago that I found myself. I woke up from a dream that I've had a reoccurring dream that comes back over and over again to me about trying to find my way home, and I'm involved in this loud, noisy, technological factory with people who are working there and who seem perfectly calm, and it's very disturbing, and it's full of all this kind of technology and noise and confusion, and I'm trying to find my way through it, trying to get back through it. And I woke up from having this dream a couple of weeks ago, and my first thought was, wow, I was petrified, because I was saying, is that a dream of hell? A dream of, of being in some terrible place? And could that happen when you die? Could you lose control and find yourself in a landscape that is just totally foreign? And then it suddenly occurred to me that the landscape that I was seeing in my dream was not some landscape that exists out there. It's where we are right now. If hell is separation from God, and if in this particular life we find ourselves separated from God because we cannot perceive the spiritual in this perceptual realm, then this landscape of hell that I was dreaming about is really the landscape that I'm in right now. Here I am in hell, so to speak, this technological, loud, out-of-control landscape, and I'm trying to get through it, trying to get out of it to go back home. And as soon as I had that insight, it made me feel so much more better. And I've got to say, the dreams are not nearly as terrifying as they used to be. I find myself saying, it doesn't get any worse than this life. This life is the worst you can experience. When you leave this life, you wake up from this dream of confusion and this dream of noise. Now, that's not saying that this life is all bad. Don't get me wrong. I mean, there's wonderful things about this life, and I'm not trying to hurry it. I'm not trying to rush it. But on the other hand, it gives me a great security in knowing that this isn't all there is.
Yeah, I think that was a good thing, like what you bring up about William Buellman, that he really does bring some comforting news to people, because he's actually worked with people that have passed over, and when those guys, I don't know if you've gotten that experience out of body travel, but those guys, they've been doing it so long, they are constantly running into people that have passed away, and they kind of know what's going on after, we pass.
Yeah, I would much rather have the experience and try to be blinded to it. I've had people tell me, I don't want to get involved in that. That sounds too scary. But I think the more we know, the better off it is. Bill used to say that there are really two kinds of out-of-body experiences. The first is what they call etheric experience. That's kind of like, staying within this particular cosmos. And you're experiencing, when the Army, for instance, was experimenting with remote viewing, and people could actually be in different places on the Earth and see people here on the Earth and all this kind of thing. Those are etheric travel. It's the astral travel where you start talking about other dimensions that are really wild. And it's surprisingly enough, I've heard a lot of people talk about they don't want to get involved in that kind of astral travel because the landscape sounds so strange. But when you're there in them, it's really not that strange. It feels very comforting. It feels very normal. The trouble is when you come back, then you have to explain it. And to explain it, you have to use words that were designed to explain things within this landscape, within this realm, And those words are simply not adequate to explain what's out there. But I think it was astral travel that the shamans, for instance, are involved in when they go to these strange landscapes and when they see these strange people. I think we can find these in the Old Testament, too. Ezekiel sees these hybrid creatures who are part animal and part human. And Isaiah is transported up in the early chapters of his book, and he sees God, and he sees these again hybrid beings that are part animal and part human, and he describes them in the Old Testament. The Apostle Paul in 2 Corinthians talks about having an out-of-body experience. He said he was taken up to the third heaven and seen things there about which he is not permitted to speak. I think he couldn't find the words. He couldn't find the language to describe what he saw. So we find it all the way through the Bible if we just open our eyes to it and see what's there.
You want to know what's crazy about that? Is I just read a guest I had on the show. His name was R. Thorsen, and he's he wrote about the initiation he calls it the northern path of initiation, how to develop occult forces. In other words, like break into the veil. Like he gets into Rudolf Steiner stuff. And in this book, it's so crazy you say that because it's like the second, I don't know if it's the second or third realm, but he says the exact same thing, that he sees animals that have certain bodies with different heads. Like even like on the earth, he would say like even a crow, like if you saw a crow fly over, you would look at the crow. But if you, for some reason, when you delved into the spiritual realm, the crow would have a body of something and a head of something different. It was made up of something totally different.
Yeah. You know, go down to Central America and Peru, and you'll see the gods, the ancient gods pictured there with the body of a man, but with the head of a bird, for instance, or feathers of a bird. And you see the same thing over in Egypt, and you see the same thing over in Mesopotamia. And over again, you see these pictures, and I think the problem is in our language. When we come back, we've seen something that's totally outside of this particular perception realm, and it's totally different. And then when we try to explain it, even to ourselves, let alone somebody else, or try to write it in a book, the words just are not adequate. So you can't say, "This is what I saw." All you can do is say, "What I saw was something like this." And just explain it as adequately as you can, but then it comes out sounding very strange here. But when you're there, it seems perfectly normal.
Yeah, I know Robert Monroe tried. He talked, you know what really creeps me out is you remember the part in his book when he talked about, he had this feeling that all of a sudden the one showed up and everybody had to like lay down, but they couldn't look up. And this thing, he said this thing like crawled over their bellies, like snake-like or something. It's a weird story. You ever run anything weird like that?
Yeah. I've had strange creatures show up. In one case, I was offered a choice. There was a small gnome-like figure that seemed very real and very beckoning, as if I was to go to it. But on the other side of this river, I could see a bear that was simply staring at me. And I had the idea at that time that I was being offered a choice, and that somehow this weird gnome-like creature was offering all of the, to put it in the biblical terms, all the kingdoms of the world, so to speak.
Huh.
And the bear was saying, "Are you going to take that, or are you going to stay here and just remain, Jim Willis?" And I chose the bear and came back from that out-of-body experience. And I think had I not done that, my life would have been totally different. And I'm not
like
sure.
Selling your soul to the devil kind of thing, maybe? Whoa.
Yeah, almost. You know, you can gain the whole world and lose your soul. It's funny right now. The book that I'm working on right now is a kind of a memoir autobiography, and I talk about that very temptation being offered me at one point back in the 80s, and I'm absolutely convinced that it is possible to make decisions. And then once we make those decisions, it's very hard to come back from them. I think nations can do that too. Countries can do that. Lost civilizations have done it. That's the whole point of the story of Atlantis, for instance. The story of Atlantis, whether you believe it's history or just metaphor, it's a story of people who reached too high and they couldn't keep up. And in one day, their civilization was buried beneath the sea. And, quite frankly, I worry about that, whether it's possible. Has our technology, which has expanded so quickly, but do we have the morality and the ethics and the spiritual foundation? Are we facing a moment right now in modern civilization where we have a choice to make? Are we going to embrace all this technology and embrace all of this, or are we going to sit back and say, wait a minute, maybe we're playing with toys that are just too dangerous? I don't know.
There was what was his name? Jared Lanier. They had a big debate about that. Some of the people that made Sophia versus like him. He used to work for, I think, Microsoft or something, I forget. And they had a really big debate. And he said it's not that technology isn't good, and that AI isn't good, but like he said, I wish I could explain it the way he did, but he said evolution is going to bring us to that no matter what. He said the problem is he doesn't believe that humans are psychologically and spiritually ready to handle that kind of responsibility right now.
I would have to agree with that. Yeah, I would agree with that. I don't think we're well. Take all these guys who did all of the .com stuff back in the 80s and 90s. Some of those people at a very young age found themselves faced with all of this money and power coming in. Some of these guys are now the richest guys in the world, but they got all that money and power before they had lived long enough to really get the spiritual base and the underpinning morality and ethics that was needed. And now they're finding themselves in trouble. It can be a really tough decision.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of hard because we get addicted to it. You and I were talking about that before the show. Like, technology is great when it works.
Yeah.
But makes our life really easy, doesn't it?
Yeah. Well, we've never before had the power to destroy the environment of the planet Earth. We've never had the power to set off an atom bomb. We've never had the power to do all of this stuff, and now we do. Are we ready? Yeah.
I don't know. I don't think we are. I'm just saying.
I agree with you.
But we're at the top of the hour. We do got to take our news break here. We'll go ahead and open up the phone lines, too. It's 1-800-588-0335 if you want to call into the program. Our guest tonight, Jim Willis. JimWillis.net is the website. Go check it out. We'll be right back.
Abnormal News, I'm Brad Bernards. NASA reports that 2 of their astronauts splashed down safely in the Gulf of Mexico Sunday for the first time in a commercially built and operated American crew spacecraft, returning from the International Space Station to complete a test flight that marks a new era in human spaceflight.
Splashdowns. As you can see on your screen, we have visual confirmation for splashdown.
SpaceX copies and concurs. We see splashdown and mains cut.
Dragon Endeavour has returned home. NASA astronauts Bob and Doug.
On behalf of the SpaceX and NASA teams, welcome back to planet Earth, and thanks for flying SpaceX.
Here's an excited NASA Administrator, Jim Bridenstine.
This was a great day for NASA and a great day for the United States of America. I want to thank our SpaceX partners and, of course, the commercial crew program here at NASA. What an amazing day. Today we really made history.
The goal of NASA's commercial crew program is safe, reliable, and cost-effective transportation to and from the International Space Station. A dead star 14,350 light-years away has just become the most important clue in solving the mystery of fast radio bursts, according to reporting in Science Alert. Earlier this year, it spat out a colossal milliseconds-long radio flare, and now the first published analysis of the event notes its similarity to the enigmatic extragalactic signals. Because most of the FRBs can't be predicted, they've proven extremely challenging to track down. One candidate has shown increasing promise. Magnetars. Interact with the news at parabnormalradio.com. I'm Brad Bernards, Parabnormal News.
Hey, is that a new music app?
Yeah, check it out. Surfer Music Discovery. It links to thousands of online stations, but the twist is you see the song names and artists that are now playing live.
That's different. No guessing. Looks like a waterfall of music.
So many formats. Rock, oldies, country, R&B, jazz, and a whole lot more.
How's that spelled?
Surfer. S-U-R-F-R.
Is it expensive?
It's free. No need to sign up or sign in.
Get the Surfer Music app free from Google Play or the App Store.
Want to know what's on the Fringe FM? Check out our schedule at thefringe.fm.
Hey, this is Amalia from Know the Self Mystery School. I know that you are in the midst of massive change. We all are. This is the great turning, the time that we all decided to be here on the planet. Do you know why you came here to be a part of this crazy time? If not, I invite you to join my mystery school. I have a 9-week course called Activate Your Mission. And in this course, you're going to learn how to erect crystal clear boundaries so that you can hear that inner still voice that's going to guide your every move. Even if you're dealing with feeling weighed down by obligations and being enslaved to the system, this course is going to give you the tools you need to illuminate your shadow and awaken to your soul's mission. The moment you sign up to the school, you are going to be greeted by not only a group of soulful spiritual warriors, but you're also going to get some massive karmic clearings, and you're going to feel the energy. It's palpable. I hope you'll join me in the school where together we're going to unlock your divine mission.
Activate your mission by going to thefringe.fm/soul mission and put in the code word fringe and receive $50 off today.
The study is a meta-analysis of 3 decades of research in Austria, Greece, Italy, Lithuania, the UK, Japan, and the USA. The report states that these findings, which are consistent with findings in clinical trials, that lithium reduces suicide and related behaviors in people with mood disorders. The study also noted that people were getting low but constant doses of lithium potentially since birth through drinking water. How would the COVID-19 pandemic look as a zombie apocalypse? Bucknell University anthropologist Claire Samuels, who teaches a course about zombies, posted a thread to Twitter, revealing what an apocalypse of a zombie kind might look like. She explains, in reality, a disease like zombieism would be very easy to contain. With a zombie epidemic, you would know immediately who is infected. There will be no moral ambiguity about how to handle the situation. People who are infected by zombies have immediate symptoms, often turning in a matter of minutes or hours. There is no asymptomatic incubation period, and that would differ greatly to the COVID-19 incubation period, where symptoms do not tend to show for an average of 5.1 days. So according to this professor, a COVID zombie pandemic would be very unlikely. And I guess since we're talking about COVID, we've all seen the COVID-19 conspiracy theories, and there's been misinformation, and it's been called an infodemic. According to a study published in the American Journal of Tropical Medicine and Hygiene, it says, misinformation fueled by rumors, stigma, and conspiracy theories can have potential serious implications on the individual and community if prioritized over evidence-based guidelines. According to the paper, they identified 2,311 reports of rumors, stigma, and conspiracy theories in 25 languages from 87 countries. Claims related to illness, transmission, and mortality were the highest at 24%, and control measures at 21%. Of the 2,276 reports for which the text ratings were available, 82% were false. This is the Rogie Report news on the Fringe FM. I'm Jess.
This portion of the show is being brought to you by Ed's Occult Optometrists, makers of prescription crystal balls for nearsighted fortune tellers.
Message is being broadcast by the Department of Defense of the Republic. At 2 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, multiple unidentified objects were confirmed to have entered Earth's atmosphere.
Discovery Houston, 20 seconds to LOS speed ready. Contact, nice, in orbit.
The first message that comes to you is you are a divine being. You matter. You count. You come from realms of unimaginable power and light, and you will return to those realms.
The vast stretches of the unknown and the unanswered and the unfinished still far outstrip our collective comprehension.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Broadcasting from Forest Tower Studios, all the way from the Deep South. Now, here is your host, Joe Root.
All right, welcome back to Lighting the Void. If you're just joining us and this is your first time listening, this show's here for you 5 nights a week, 9 p.m. Pacific to 11 p.m. Right after this broadcast is the Secret Teachings with Ryan Gable. I do really appreciate you guys hanging in there with us as we transition to all the new servers and apps and stuff. So thank you guys for your patience and all the lovely reminders you tell me when something's being replayed or whatever. But you know what? When it comes to the late at night, I'm on top of it. I'm right in front of the computer. So if there's a hiccup there, it's usually because I had to step out real quick or something. But thanks for your patience. I just wanted to say that. Our guest tonight, Jim Willis, jimwillis.net. That's the website to go to for reference. Fascinating discussion. Great guy. Lots of books to go into here. Jim, I wonder what your thoughts are on, I have to talk Revelations with you. I got, Brett brought it up in the chat room here, and I thought, man, this would be the perfect guy to talk to about with Revelation. So I have a theory that the Revelations is kind of like the key to alchemy, and it's kind of showing it's really talking about a spiritual transition that happens inside of a person more and less, not so much the end of the world. However, it could be talking about all of it, because I think the Bible tends to do that sometimes, where it could be, you know, saying 2 or 3 things at once and they're all true, because it seems that powerful sometimes.
Yeah, layer upon layer upon layer. I used to teach the book of Revelation. I used to teach a course on the book of Revelation. And back in those days, I was more associated with the evangelical side of the Christian church, and so I would use I would have the background to it that, say, Hal Lindsey did when he talked about in his book There's a New World Coming, or back in even before that when he was talking about, you know, the end of the world and looking upon it as a literal thing. But then as I grew more and as I began to understand more, I began to find depths there that I had never had before. And I just think you just said it beautifully. I think when you're talking about that other layer that happens within inside a person, whoever wrote the book of Revelation, it's usually attributed to John the Apostle, but probably not. It was probably somebody else. But if it did come from the island of Patmos, I think it has to do with an out-of-body experience.
Yeah,
that was probably a journey inward as much as outward. And we often tend to think about, Revelation, the end of the world, but it's really important to know it doesn't end up with the end of the world. It ends up with a brand new world, a new world coming, a brand new world of light. and 1,000 years of peace and wonder, and then on into eternity. And the idea of bringing heaven down to earth, the New Jerusalem coming down from God as a bride prepared for her husband. And I heard a voice from the throne saying, "Behold, the dwelling of God is with men. He shall dwell with them, and they shall be his people." And on and on. It's just it's a beautiful picture, I think, of transformation, and I love it for that reason.
Yeah, I do too. I got some questions about that here I want to ask you, but let's take a couple of phone calls here first. We got 248 area code. You're on the air with Jim Willis. Who are you speaking with?
Hey, Joe, this is Brent. How are you?
Pretty good, brother. How are you doing?
It's good to talk with you again.
Yeah, you too, man. What's on your mind? You got some knowledge you're going to drop on us tonight?
I have a question for Mr. Jim Willis.
Okay.
Actually, two. What do you know about astrology, and what do you think about Pluto returns in 2020 happening in the Sabbath year of the year 2020? I mean, 2020 is a Sabbath year, like 2001 when 9/11 happened, and 2008 when the market crashed, and 2015 when the market crashed again. So I was just wondering if you could give me any insight on that.
That's a pretty good question.
Brent, it's a great question, a great insight. I wish I could give you some insight into that. My knowledge of astrology is extremely limited, but I have some very good friends who are much deeper into it than I am, and I'm fortunate that when I have questions, I can go to them. I really wish I could speak with some kind of insight to your question, because it's a great question. But it's just not in my wheelhouse, I'm afraid. I'm really sorry to let you down there.
You got another question, you said?
Just about the Sabbath year being 2020.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, it does kind of make sense to me if it's Pluto, because Pluto's all about change and transmutation, but it's also kind of like Dante's kind of deal too, where you have to face some things to change. Pluto always represents like the hard change, the stuff that, well, at least the stuff we think is hard, but it's also an outer planet, so it's definitely like a spiritual thing that needs to happen too. So I don't know. Yeah. I think that's a pretty good question. It's pretty valid, actually. Thanks for your call.
I think so brother. Too. Whatever we say, 2020 is certainly going to go down as a hard year, isn't it? It's, Yeah.
We'll all remember it for sure.
I'm gonna keep that question on the back burner though, Brent. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for the questions. Good questions. All right, let's see. We got one more here. 618 area code. You're on the air with Jim Willis. Who are we speaking with?
Hey, this is Pat.
What's up, Pat?
Hey, not much. Hey, Jim, how you doing?
Pretty good, Pat.
Okay, you were talking about out-of-body experiences. I've told Joe this story, but I don't know if you're into crystals or not, but the first time I ever used crystals, I used amethyst. I put them on my third eye, laid there for about 45 minutes or so trying to get meditation going, and couldn't put the crystals down, and not that much late. I mean, 20 seconds, maybe a couple minutes, I don't know, later. All of a sudden, everything just kind of went black, and sound and colors, and I can't even, I mean, it was so real. I know this sounds weird. That was more real than me being here now.
Yep.
I have
had so many people. I've had so many people tell me that same story, that they have experiences like that, and I've had it myself, where it seems like that's the reality. This is the dream world that we're living in here. That's pretty powerful experience.
And the other thing is while that was happening, I all of a sudden heard a voice, and it said, "You had that I have a friend. You have a friend," is what I heard. But I can't explain this. Everything was so real, and it's like you're just part of everything. The colors, the sounds. I mean, I heard music. It was odd. Well, when that happened, and I thought, holy, somebody just said something, and all of a sudden I woke up, and I remember I was totally awake, and it was an hour and a half later, but it only felt like it was 30 seconds.
Yeah. Time has no meaning over there, does it? And that I can't emphasize enough how many people have told me that same thing, that they had the feeling that it was so much more real there than here. And when they were there was no time. And they say, I heard a voice tell me something. And then I will ask them, what did the voice say? And they can tell me what the message was, but it was almost like transported in a block rather than word for word, the way we used to do it, almost like a teaching, and you understand it perfectly, but it didn't come word for word. It's all of a sudden, boom, right there. And when you talk about hearing music, I think that is as old as humankind. The ancients, who were much more in tune with this kind of stuff, used to talk about the music of the spheres. And even in the Bible, we hear about the hills clap their hands, and the rivers sing for joy, and all this kind of thing. I think music is our way of trying to describe vibrations, vibratory sensations that when we have to describe it, all the only thing we can use is say music. I think you had yourself a real powerful out-of-body experience. I'm really, thank you for sharing that. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, that was the only time I've ever had that ever happen, and that was probably 30 years ago. But that's the whole reason I'm listening to Joe and trying to search for, what was going on. And, there's more to everything than we think, but.
Right on.
Well, Bill Buhlman.
I've had out-of-body experiences. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
I've had out-of-body experiences before where I've been out of my body, seen my body. It wasn't an out-of-body experience like that. I mean, I was in a different place. I mean, it wasn't, here, now. It wasn't anywhere near here. Yeah, I don't doubt it. Bill Buhlman used to say that if you make out-of-body experiences your primary goal, and if you set a time of day when it works out best for you, for me, believe it or not, when I was first starting out, the time of day that worked best for me was like 3 o'clock in the morning. I would have to get up out of bed, go into my place where I meditated, put on hemisync music, and which was an invention of Bob Monroe's, and meditate. And but Bill Buhlman used to say, if you do that 30 minutes a day, 30 days a week, 30 days in a row, you will have an out-of-body experience almost always. And I got to say, I think he's right. Because I started to do it, and if I had quit at day 28, I wouldn't be talking to you right now. But it has to be a priority, and you have to really work at it, because it's so hard to throw off the stuff of this world that fills us up. But it is possible. I really encourage anybody who's out there who really wants to get here, get a copy of Bill Buhlman's book. Joe, you can help me with this. I can't think of it right now.
Is it How to Have an Out-of-Body Experience, or is it the
Journeys Out of Body? I think it is.
No, that's Bob Monroe. His was.
That's right.
His was had a title just like that. It was just like that.
Yeah,
it was the same thing.
And William Buhlman. I think it's probably the classic book.
Adventures Beyond the Body or something. That's what it was.
Yeah, that's what it was. And I dog-eared that book, and I underlined that book. I practically memorized that book, and I followed his advice. And sure enough, 29 days. It took. That's my first one. And then when you start, but I can also identify with the caller here about when he said, all of a sudden he said, wow, what's going on, and snapped back into the body. That's one of the hardest things. You're having this out-of-body experience, and all of a sudden something happens where you think about your body, and boom, you're back into it right away. So it's very difficult to learn how to take this experience that you're having that is so real and so wonderful and so vivid, and then when it happens, you say, there, I did it, and then boom, it's over. It can be frustrating, but you can deal with it.
Yeah, thanks for your call, Pat. I really appreciate you calling in, and I like the woodwork
Thank you,
stuff,
Pat.
man.
Really great to hear from you.
You know, I was thinking about today, I was listening to, actually, because I was telling you the new challenge with the Patreon group. So I was listening to Robert Monroe's book today. And, you know, if you go back and listen to him, like I have this thing now where I listen to him once a year because I always catch something I missed. And we've been trying to figure out not just how to get out of body, but to, like, you know, find each other, right? So he talked about that today, and it really got to me what he was saying. He said, you know, when you have a place in mind that you want to go, you have to be able to focus on that place without any disturbance of thought. And he said, so think about that. You have the superconscious, which you're in a realm full of everybody's thoughts, your own thoughts, your subconscious stuff. Can you think about like a person, place, or thing and focus that long as you're traveling to it without any disturbance? He said, it's not easy. And that's why people have a hard time actually doing these extracurricular things that they want to try to do, that they had to do like scientifically at the Monroe Institute so much.
Yeah, it is tough. I've had a lot of people call in on shows such as this and say, you know, how do I have an out-of-body experience? And I've got to say, the very lifestyle that we lead today makes it very difficult. Most of us are just so busy, and our lives are so cluttered, and we're always thinking about what we have to do next. And the distractions make it very difficult. That's why I'm entirely convinced that the ancient civilizations, and this is what got me studying about ancient civilizations more than anything, the old ones, living in a much simpler lifestyle and a much quieter lifestyle, I think they were much more in tune with this stuff than we are. They were much more right brain, much more intuitive. I think they even had probably what I like to call a psychic toolkit, which helps explain how some of these great megalithic structures were built with the power of mind rather than the power of pulleys and levers and stuff that we use today. But we live in this technologically oriented left brain society, and so a lot of the powers that are inherent in us that the old timers knew, those are they've atrophied in us. That doesn't mean they're gone. We can still bring them alive. We can still bring them out, but it takes a lot of practice, and we also have to use a lot of aids sometimes. Drumming, for instance, a lot of people use drumming to go on an out-of-body experience. A monotonous drumming, the rhythm. That's an old shamanic practice. I mentioned earlier about hemisync, which is an invention of Bob Monroe's. I use that. Although I don't have any experience with it, I have known people and talked to people who have used psychedelics or ayahuasca or mushroom buttons or even LSD or something like that. I don't have any experience with those, and I really don't recommend them because I don't know anything about them. But I know some people, a shaman in the shamanic tradition, especially down in South America, in Peru, there was a lot of ayahuasca that is used down there. Graham Hancock, in his book Supernatural, does a lot talking about this kind of thing.
You got to watch out. Now there's a lot of people calling themselves shamans nowadays, trying to earn a quick buck.
Oh yeah. It is like anything else. A good thing can be used for bad purposes by the wrong people, and that's another way of doing it.
So I had a question I wanted to ask you about Revelations too, because you know how we were discussing earlier that you read these scriptures and a lot of times you can see the metaphor, you can see the literal story, and then you can even see, I don't know, maybe a Kabbalistic or mystery school kind of symbol there, and it's like all three are true. It makes you think about the word, how he says the word is alive, the logos.
Yeah.
Like it's actually permeating reality, that it spits out this reality to where it makes laws, reality, and a story all in one verse. That's all true. Yeah. It's like a paradox.
Yeah. It's interesting you should say that. The whole idea of the logos, logos, of course, is translated. It's a Greek word meaning word. And in the Gospel of John, for instance, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. And then in the book of Genesis, when it talks about God creating the universe, how did he do it? He spoke a word. God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. Yeah, that word, there's a lot of power in the spoken word. It's vibration, but it also has a lot of meaning back there. And I think you're absolutely right when you talk about the logos and how it just permeates our wisdom.
Yeah, we do the same thing though, right? Like we go, we don't even know it. We're blessing and cursing our lives every day. You know, we have a thought and emotion like, man, every time I go to this gas station, they always get over on me for $1 on gas. Like every time you're angry, you're thinking it, and now you spoke it. And guess what? It keeps happening, doesn't it? You know, for some reason, like you got to change your paradigm. But there was so there's a part in Revelations where he's talking about the kingdom of heaven where he measures it, right? And he says that it's as of a man, it's the length of a man that's of an angel. And I got to thinking about that. I wrote it, like I got a piece of paper and I drew like the man and then the angel with the wing. And I was like, well, that's kind of like the Vitruvian man, and then I outlined that and it was a pentagon. And then he says, the length is the width is the height of it. So it's a 3D shape and all the 12 sides are equal, 12 sides. So it's a pentagonal dodecahedron. Now, I've seen that shape in Pythagoras' work, like the ancient mystery schools. And then you look at the Merkaba mysteries. I mean, they're probably telling us how to create our own astral travel vehicles in Revelations. We don't even know it.
Yeah, well, and also we can even going farther when our perception realm right here, the perception realm that we live in, all of us are enclosed by a pentagon, 5 sides, and the 5 senses of touch, taste, hearing, smell, and sight. It's a 5-sided wall that walls us into this perception realm with over the top of it a roof that would be what you were just talking about in the tetrahedron.
Yes, the dodecahedron.
The roof is, that's right, and the roof is the intellect, and we are encased in that. And an out-of-body experience involves getting outside of that perception realm. Our problem is that we think that reality is within that 5-sided figure of our perception realm. That's not reality at all. The real reality is on the other side, outside the fence. Everything we have is filtered through that 5 senses. So, that's
crazy.
I think you're absolutely right.
How perfect the human body was made. Shoot, we got to take a break. But there are measurements on the human body that are the same. And if you took a human body and it stretched out as far as it could in any shape or form, it can't get outside of that dodecahedron. Think about that. Mm-hmm. So are we in like simulators? I don't know. Could be.
I don't know. It's interesting. It sure is interesting.
It's pretty trippy, right? We'll be right back. Jim Willis, stay with us.
Listening to the Fringe FM.
Have you ever seen an ad or banner which brought you a feeling that someone is reading your mind or even listening to your conversations? Your online data is being used against you. Surfshark is a VPN service that makes online privacy protection easy and attainable. You can use it on as many devices as you'd like simultaneously. The VPN service that we use at UFO Seekers, plus 1 month free for $1.99 a month. Visit surfshark.deals/seekers. We spend almost as much time online as sleeping. That's 6 to 8 hours a day. The internet knows a lot about us, and that's why we should care about our online data. Use Surfshark to encrypt your personal information and send it via a secure VPN tunnel so that no one can see it without your permission. Visit surfshark.deals/seekers. You need to protect yourself from surveillance and targeted advertising. Surfshark encrypts all internet traffic sent to and from your devices and ensures that your IP address remains hidden. The VPN service that we use at UFO Seekers, plus 1 month free for $1.99 a month. Visit surfshark.deals/seekers.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from TalkStream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now. The Paranormal Radio app, free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
Somewhere between abnormal and paranormal, there's a show called Into the Paranormal. I'm Jeremy Scott. Hear me live Saturdays at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 Eastern on the Fringe FM.
Okay, here we go. AncientLifeOil.com. AncientLifeOil.com. Now, this is for CBD. AncientLifeOil.com. Again, for CBD. Where do I get CBD? AncientLifeOil.com. It's pretty good stuff. Organic, non-GMO. We are the Ferrari of CBDs. AncientLifeOil.com. You know, they say when you mention a person's name 3 times when you first meet, that you're going to remember. So I'd say to you, nice to meet you, AncientLifeOil.com. It's AncientLifeOil.com, right? Nice to know that you help people. AncientLifeOil.com. Think about this. Occasional stress, occasional anxiety, occasional inflammation, occasional stiffness, and intruders that get you down. AncientLifeOil.com. Okay, so I'm going to give you a fact for the day. So Ancient Life Oil does not help you with business deals. Hold on a second. If you feel better, it could help you make a better decision. Okay, I'm wrong. Just remember to go to AncientLifeOil.com.
The truth is out there.
There's something out here.
And so are we. KTOK Digital Broadcasting, The Fringe FM.
Hi, folks. It's troubling times, and fear is pushing emotions, which in turn pushes health the wrong direction. Do you ever get an ache because life is uneasy? Try Life Change Tea at GetTheTea.com. Life Change Tea works on your digestive tract, helping to move food through quicker and comfortably so your health is spot on. Life Change Tea may not help with world issues, but it will help with your digestive issues. A glass a day helps keep the intruders away. So, change your life today. Log on to GetTheTea.com. That's GetTheTea.com. If your health game is off, get on by ordering Life Change Tea. GetTheTea.com. And while you're on our site, look around at the great non-GMO organic supplements. And if you're a sales shopper, go to our specials page and see what's for you. I've been drinking the tea for 12 years, and I'm sure glad for its health benefits. Again, that's GetTheTea.com. GetTheTea.com. The tea that makes you go.
The Liberator rocket heater will heat your home for free. The highly efficient Liberator rocket heater has no moving parts. It's safe and strong, constructed of 1/4-inch steel. So like all things made in the USA, it's built to last. Uses any kind of wood, sticks, even scrap in its gravity-fed firebox. And it heats workshops, homes, garages, outbuildings, industrial areas, and barns. Watch the video of this blast furnace stove in action. Visit rocketheater.com. That's rocketheater.com.
You're listening to Lighting the Void Radio.
All right, thanks for sticking around with us here on Lighting the Void. Remember, the show is live, unscreened calls. Phone line is 1-800-588-0335 if you want to call in. Jim Willis, our guest tonight. It's been an awesome discussion so far. Make sure you stay tuned, too, because the shows keep coming. The Secret Teachings with Brian Gable comes on next. And then tomorrow night we'll do open lines, and I'm hoping Ryan comes on, too, because we talked about that. So he may come on tomorrow night with us. Even Night Stalker, I'm trying to get him to come on, too. So, but Jim, you know, I want to keep talking about this. We're talking about Scripture and the real mysteries and stuff that are in there. There's so many things in there. There's so many quotes of people that write in there that say, I saw this and I saw that, but whether I was in the body or out of the body. I do not. They talk about the being out of the body in there. You know.
Yeah. I think in our day, especially in the last 50, 100 years, especially, I think we've been too quick to take the scriptural words and just all of a sudden say, well, we're talking metaphor. I have my own feeling, and of course you can't prove this, but my own feeling is that the founders, and I'm talking here of Jesus and Moses and Muhammad and Abraham, I think the founders were in touch with a reality that we've been talking about for the last hour and a half now. What happens is, unfortunately, the followers come along, and over the years, they take that essential message and they start to circumscribe it with doctrines and dogmas and rules and this and that and the other thing. And I think the secret, when people talk to me about I've lost my religion, I say, well, maybe you haven't lost your religion. Maybe you need to get back into it with open eyes, because whether we're talking Judaism, Islam, Christianity, Hinduism, Buddhism isn't quite in the same thing, because Buddhism doesn't have that supernatural component that is so strong, although it does have plenty of supernatural component to it, but it isn't maybe as strong as the others. But on the other hand, if you go back and look into it, you'll find all kinds of things there that you never knew were there, and it just opens up your religion. So when people say, I've lost my religion, I say, well, maybe that was good. Maybe you lost it because you needed to find it on a totally deeper level. I still call myself a Christian. I'm certain there are Christians out there that say I'm not, because I don't fit their particular brand. But I have found in Christianity a tremendous amount of not only information but experiential stuff that I just never knew before. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't find it in other religions too, in Judaism and in Christianity and in Islam and in Hinduism and all of these. I think we have to get back to that essential vision of the founder who saw things in a different way and spoke it into existence. It's just a shame that the years have been so hard to the messages of those founders.
Yeah, well, we still are kind of fortunate enough to have mystics. I mean, like yourself there, we've had some that have actually blessed our presence. People don't even know that they exist until someone comes along and tells us about them. People like Dr. Stylianos Ateslos and Daskalos, and then Lars Mule talked about his teacher. And we don't believe these people exist anymore, but they totally do. They're on the earth. They just don't come out and grandstand, like most of the time Daskalos was just painting something or healing people. And then they do prayer sessions, and that was it. Right.
Yeah, I think those unsung heroes are what's holding the fabric of civilization together. The Bible talks about finding angels unaware, not realizing that they're angels. And I'm not saying that these people are not real flesh and blood people. They are, but they have an angelic quality of just quietly going about the business of spirituality, and I think we are very much dependent on them. I think that's it's so great when you meet someone like that. They almost shine, don't they?
Yeah, for sure. There is the latest. I just want to talk about too. The latest book that you have out is Hidden History, right? Ancient Aliens and the Suppressed Origins of Civilization. What's your just curious, what's your take on that? Is it different than what Ancient Aliens have been teaching us? Do you have a different point of view?
You mean on
let's say the pyramids.
In regards to what?
Yeah.
Oh, well, what I do in Hidden History, that was a book that just grew in the telling. I started out thinking about my own experience growing up in school. And to be honest, I took courses in school like history classes and other classes like that were just so boring. I just hated it because we were, we were just told to memorize dates, and then we had to parrot it back, and if we had the dates right, and if we had all the stuff back, and we gave it right back to it just like the teacher gave it to us, then we were considered good. We got a good grade. Otherwise, we were bad. We got a bad grade. And when I started teaching college, I hated to give grades. I was teaching world religions in college, and I was getting back and forth with the students and having some wonderful stuff. And then at the end of the semester, the school tells me I got to give them a grade, And so what I wanted to do was go back and look at some of that history and realize that a lot of the stuff that we were taught became obsolete very quickly. And even stuff that I taught when I started teaching became very obsolete. Classic example, in last 75 years here in America, we've been told that Clovis first is the doctrine of archaeology. The first people here were the Clovis people, 16,000 years ago. That was it. Well, now Clovis first lies tattered in shreds. But how many archaeologists and how many people died suspecting that Clovis first wasn't right, but if they didn't teach Clovis first, they lost their funding, they lost their tenure, they couldn't get a job. How many people died because of that? Died thinking they were failures, and now it turns out they were correct. So when I wrote Hidden History, what I wanted to do was take all of the beginnings, the beginning of the cosmos, the beginning of the universe, starting with the Big Bang, and the beginning of how life came from non-life, and how civilizations grew, and how human beings came about. And I wanted to give the classic understanding of it, and that's the first part of each chapter, the classic academic point of view. But then I wanted to express all of these other ones, not to judge them or say this is it or that's that, but just to say this is a possibility or that's a possibility. And I discovered that all of these different ideas, from ancient aliens to the Big Bang to what happened before the Big Bang, it's not nearly as set in stone as we like to think it is. So Hidden History is just a book of possibilities, what could be. And I just cannot close my mind to anything anymore.
It's pretty obvious. I mean, it goes without saying that this earth is probably much older than we can imagine. I know that people like John Anthony West and Robert Schoch and others who have showed us that, but then I wonder sometimes, like, if it is older than we imagined. Yet the Bible texts talk about replenishing the earth. So maybe the stories that we heard were from post-Atlantis, maybe? I don't know. From then on, who knows?
Yeah, I like to examine two different areas of evidence. The first is what I like to call evidence in stone. There are a lot of megaliths out there that we just can't explain. When we go to Göbekli Tepe next September, maybe some of your viewers might want to, or your listeners might want to come along with us. If so, just contact look up Ancient Origins magazine on the internet, and you'll find advertisings for it. When we go there, we're going to find that Göbekli Tepe, when it was first discovered, nobody knew that this thing was there, and it was almost 10,500 BC and all this kind of thing. Nobody even knew about that. That all of a sudden, within a very short time, within the last 20 years, we have doubled the length of civilization that it was on here. We always thought that civilization began in Mesopotamia and Egypt, but it began right up there in Turkey and Göbekli Tepe on the plains of Anatolia. All of these different things, these different ideas. What I wanted to do in Hidden History was just say this is the academic idea that probably is held by most people, but there's a whole lot of people out there that have different ideas and that need to be heard.
Yeah, I think John Anthony West was a pioneer there, but he was also one of those people that he wasn't afraid to say whatever what was on his mind too, man. Like, we need more people like that.
He had to pay the price. I mean, he really, talk about handling the slings and arrows. He was a pioneer for all of us who write about this stuff now, because a lot of people just, when he started talking about the Younger Dryas Comet, for instance, nobody would accept that, and they were just brutally attacked. Hugh Everett was one of the great physicists who ever lived. He was the one who gave us the whole idea of the multiverse, and he died thinking he was a total failure. He was kicked out of basically he was kicked out of the whole academic field of physics, and he had to go work for the government because nobody would hire him as a physician, as a physics mind. And yet he was the one that gave us the multiverse. He died thinking he was a failure, and now his idea is accepted, if not universally, then pretty close to it. Real tragedy.
Now, I've got to do my producer a service here, because I'm pretty sure he wanted me to ask you about this. It was probably one of the biggest reasons why you're on the show is your book, The Quantum Acoustic Field, A Guide to Out-of-Body Experiences for the Astral Traveler. Yes. Your view on astral travel, what do you bring to the table here?
Mostly in this book, mostly my own experience. What I do is try to talk about the theory of it, and I don't think when we're talking about the quantum akashic field and astral travel, I don't think we're talking about all this woo-woo mystical spirit stuff. I think we're dealing with science that we do not yet understand. But I do think that quantum physics and the world of quantum reality, which is now one of the most universally accepted fields, one of the most universally accepted ideas in all of physics is quantum reality. It's been tested over and over and over again. I think they are beginning to find the science for what the ancients were discovering through their own experience. So I like to talk about, in this book, The Quantum Akashic Field, I talk about not only the science of it and the possibilities and the idea of entanglement and the idea of quantum reality, which is a lot of weird and counterintuitive stuff, but it's real, it's there, and how we can experience that and actually enter into that world outside of our bodies. So that's kind of my take onto it, that we're talking about a science that we don't really yet understand.
But you do have some cool stuff in there, like you have some step-by-step processes on a safe, simple, meditative technique to get into these states, right?
Yeah. Yes, it is. I wanted to make it very practical. I wanted to make it almost a field guide, so that if anybody wants to have out-of-body experiences, the Quantum Akashic Field is for you, and I hope you enjoy it.
Yeah, there's a lot of teachers on this stuff. There is, and I think everybody has something to bring to the table here, especially if you've been doing this for as long as you've done it. And I'm jealous because that's like on my bucket list. I want to go to the Monroe Institute so bad. I'll have to have that experience.
It is well worth it. They do some. They're really, and they're branching out. Matter of fact, one of the people who gave the a plug for the Quantum Akashic Field is a fellow that I met by reading his books. Well, I guess Bill Buellman gave me a plug for that too. But I read one of his books, Joseph Feltzer, and he was on the board at the Monroe Institute, so we had a lot to share there. So it's really well worth it to go there.
You want to know one of the craziest stories I ever heard about the Monroe Institute was actually from Whitley Strieber. Whitley Strieber came on the show, and I had no idea that he went to the Monroe Institute. And after, you remember back in the day when he went on Art Bell and he talked about his abduction experience, and it was all this thing about probing, and it was one of the biggest stories ever, biggest well-known abduction stories ever. And he wrote Communion, scared people. But later, as he went on in life, and it caused him to, this is what he told us on the show, it caused him to investigate the spiritual realms, because he figured that he had this feeling there was something more to it. And he had some crazy experiences there. And ever since he told me that story, I really wanted to go there. Bad.
Yeah.
Did you have a pretty intense experience there when you went?
Yeah, it was. It wasn't as intense as I had hoped, and it was all my fault for that. I can't blame the Monroe Institute at all. I think I probably went there with some expectations and probably tried too hard. But I think probably my biggest problem was that it was a community, that formed, and you're together for a week, and there must have been 25, 30 of us, I suppose. And I have done so many seminars, led so many seminars like this myself, where I was leading them, and dealt with so much of the dynamics of what it is when a group comes together and when they form and when they go about all the community building things that happen over the course of a week, that I found myself tracking it and saying, this is going to happen next, and that's going to happen next, and everything else.
Yeah, you start to have expectations that messes with it, doesn't it?
Yeah, it really does. It really does. And so it was all my fault. Bill Buellman led the workshop, and he was tremendous. And I really enjoyed getting together with him and getting together with some of the other people and the discussions we were having during our time out. That was, to me, even more valuable. But the Monroe Institute has been doing this for a long time. And I really recommend it. They have satellite programs out now. You don't have to travel to their that one location. They do have satellite programs out there. Matter of fact, I just got a notification from them. They're doing I think it's the Gateway program, which is their beginning program. They're doing it online because, of course, they can't go to the Institute now with all the COVID stuff. Yeah. So they're doing it online, and it's basically the same institute. And if you have the discipline to do it yourself at home and really do everything that they suggest you do, I'm sure it's going to be well worth it.
It would have to be. I talk to everybody that goes there, says change them. Even guys like Thomas Campbell, probably one of the most scientific thinking men I've ever met. He just is all about trying to figure out what consciousness is. And he's got, isn't that something, right? That's one of the most intelligent men I've ever met in my life. I'll probably never amount to his brain power. Still has all the same basic questions I do. Yeah. So what do we really know? We're all the same, right? That's it.
That's it right there. You've said it perfectly, I think. Yeah, and I think probably it's all tied up with that word "know." I think we feel things that we are trying to find words to explain. We're trying to change our feelings into knowledge. I think it's interesting, for instance, that you can talk about big-time physicists. You can mention their names, and nobody knows who they are. Right, and yet they're giving us the Big Bang, and they're giving us all this stuff. And yet everybody knows who Merlin and Gandalf are, because those two mythical figures speak to something deep within us, a yearning deep within us that is just basically they're all asking the same question: Who am I really? And can this mythical Merlin, can this mythical Gandalf, can that be the one that takes me beyond the physical? And I think that's the deep yearning within every single one of us. And that's the yearning I think we're dealing with when we talk about all this stuff that we've been talking about for the last 2 hours.
Yeah, I agree totally. Because deep down we feel it, and then we have experiences that kind of tease us all the time about it. And then it's constantly like holding this carrot over, saying it's here. You just got to tap into it. And
we know it's there. That's right.
Well, listen, it's been a really cool conversation having you on the show. I've thoroughly enjoyed having you on.
Well, thank you, Joe. I appreciated being with you. This has been fun.
Then your book, the new book's going to come out April of 2021.
April 2021. That's Censoring God. That's about the lost scriptures and the edited scriptures that didn't make the Bible, that didn't make the final cut. Hidden History is that came out in in September, I think it was, or October, and then Quantum Akashic Field just came out last December.
Fantastic.
But all the information is on my website. If anybody wants to take a look at it and just see what they are, it's all on my website, jimwillis.net.
Fantastic. And thank you again for coming on the show, man. We'll have to do it again sometime when that book comes out, for sure.
Okay, love to. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. And I promise, guys, I'll leave all the I'm not going to make you wait on the archives as long as I did last time, I promise. I'm going to put all the links there and everything so you guys can check that out. And we got to roll out of here so we can get Ryan on. But we'll be back tomorrow night, same time, same channel. Please don't copy the show without written permission. Music was by Chronox and Stevie. Big shout out to you guys that called in, the Fringe FM chat room, the Fringe FM staff, and the patrons to make the show possible. See you guys tomorrow night. Have a good night.
On this program do not necessarily reflect those of the Fringe FM, KTLK Digital Broadcasting, its sponsors, affiliates, or staff. Listener discretion is advised.